Hello and welcome to The Stack. For this week's show, we speak with Harriet Fitch Little, food and drink editor of the FT Weekend magazine, on the revamped section. We also look at Forbes House Madrid, their very first members club. Enjoy the show. From Midori House in London, this is The Stack, 30 minutes of print industry analysis, and I am Fernando Augusto Pacheco. We start the show welcoming back to The Stack Harriet Fitch Little, now food and drink editor of the FT Weekend magazine. This Saturday, her section has been revamped, with new columnists including Jay Rayner and Marina O'Loughlin. This weekend, the whole magazine is dedicated to food and drink, and the cover story is The Rules of Modern Dining, a must-read. Harriet stopped by a Midori House for a conversation about it.
We are introducing two new critics to our lineup, Jay Rayner and Marina O'Loughlin, both joining. This section's expanding in various ways. So, it does play a sort of increasing role, which is perhaps rare at a time where you often feel like food and drink and perhaps like particularly in-depth columns are being cut back. I feel like food and drink in magazines is often reduced to a few listicles and a sort of trend roundup, and the FT is sort of going in the opposite direction, which is really nice.
Well, you're going in the right direction, right? Because we've been discussing, especially the FT Weekend, in general, I think there's been a rise in subscriptions as well. And you were telling me, tell us about the type of, the ages of the people that read the FT Weekend magazine, because it might be younger than we think it is, right?
Yeah, I think readers of the weekday edition of the FT, I would say, sort of remain the people who you imagine when you imagine a sort of traditional FT reader. The way the FT gets used in films to sort of, symbolise a certain type of person, normally a man in a business suit. At the weekend, it is far more diverse in terms of the audience we get, and it's a lot of young people. And I'm sure you've seen this yourself, that you'll often see the FT Weekend paper used almost as a prop on social media. If people are sort of trying to indicate that they're having like a particular type of relaxed, cultured weekend, that's sort of the paper that I think people now gravitate towards, which is something that I've been at the FT for 2 years. But when I started the job and said to some of my older colleagues, like, the FT is cool now, they're like, I don't believe you. Are you talking about the FT? And I think you'd agree, because, you read the FT at the weekend.
I do.
It's cool now.
It is cool. And it is cool. I think the look of it is cool as well. It's an amazing design. Even the covers for the FT Weekend magazine, I've been quite a big fan as well.
And I feel like I am being flippant in sort of describing it as an aesthetic thing, because I think the basic point is that the FT Weekend paper is an extremely good paper which feels like smart and witty, and I guess those are the two main qualities I would ascribe to it. And I have a lot of friends who grew up perhaps with their parents reading either The Guardian or The Telegraph, sort of, or The Times, households where those are the papers, and the FT sort of seems a bit, in an odd way, for a financial paper, sort of free of the signifiers that go perhaps even politically with like those various papers, and it is just a home for very good journalism.
And it feels to me like the only British paper that is truly international as well. I think from someone like me coming from Brazil but living in the UK for a few years, it just generally feels truly international.
I'm glad you feel that way.
Well, let's talk about Jay and Marina and their addition to the roster of columnists. And even the cover story that you can say you can buy the newspaper today, it's in praise of columnists as well, and the importance of critics in a magazine like yours. Tell us a bit more about it.
Well, I think when I started this job and I was sort of thinking, what are the sort of existential question for all magazines, but perhaps particularly newspaper magazines where you're not trading off a sort of like beautiful, like cutting edge aesthetic in the same way as like some publications who you might speak to on this podcast. What are we actually giving people at the weekend that they can't get elsewhere? They can get all the information elsewhere, is the truth. Like if you actually wanted to know where you were going to go in London for a meal tonight, you might end up with a review, but you're actually far more likely to end up with some sort of like roundup somewhere you've seen tagged on Instagram. So if we can't provide that for readers, what do we provide? Scary existential question, but I think at least a large part of the answer is that we provide sort of voices. Tim Hayward, who is part of our columnist roster, used to write about restaurants and now is writing about food. I remember him saying to me last year that food columnists are the only people who can still get away with this incredibly florid prose, really sort of like luxuriating in language for the sake of language almost, because that's why we turn to them. And so even though there's a way of looking at it, which is, you know, having a critic in a magazine feels like quite a traditional thing to have. But if you actually look at, you know, what is a magazine giving you on your weekend that you can't get elsewhere, it's actually that, isn't it? It's, you know, someone who they just make you laugh, like their turns of phrase are just things that, you know, describe things so perfectly, but you couldn't have thought of yourself. You get to know their voice, you know, over time. So that's why we're sort of investing in it quite heavily.
And for me, those critics, why they matter so much, because they write in a way that is not press release speak, you know, which
Absolutely.
we see so much these days. So I think, you know, of course I love reading a Jay Rayner column. I might not agree all the time, but it's entertaining to read.
Definitely. It's probably also, you know, the last corner of journalism where you don't need to worry about AI being able to do their jobs.
So tell us, I mean, the first edition with this new kind of revamped food and drink coverage, it's about the rules of modern dining.
Yes.
Tell us what people can find in today's edition.
Well, we do these food and drink specials about once every quarter where the whole magazine is taken over by food and drink. And the main thing I try and do with them, which is perhaps, you know, of interest to an audience who really care about magazines, is maybe you've noticed when you open, I will not name the names of some of our competitors, at the weekend, and the cover story looks amazing. It's, you know, like how to have the coziest winter ever. And you're like, oh my God, I want to have the coziest winter ever. I'm going to read this amazing story. And then that cover image, which is shot so beautifully, actually corresponds to a sort of double-page shopping listicle inside. And you're just like, oh, you know, I get what you did there. You got me to buy the magazine, but there's not actually much in here that sort of is delivering on the promise. So what I try and do with the food and drink specials is we really deliver on the promise of the cover. So the cover of this issue, which is out this weekend, is The Rules of Modern Dining, written by our experts and then rated and debated by a panel of their peers. So the people you mentioned before, we've got Jay, Marina, Tim and Jance Robinson, the wine critic, who gave us sort of their most strongly held but also somewhat controversial opinions. You know, for example, one of Tim's rules is that it's absolutely fine to make multiple reservations and then cancel them. Controversial. But
again, I would love to read it.
Exactly. You know, Jay says never go to a restaurant where the tasting menu's more than 7 courses, says that's the best you can do well. And so then what we did is we got these rules together. There's about 20 of them. And in themselves, they're very funny and engaging. And they really set our experts up as the authorities that they are. But then, like I was saying earlier, I want the magazine to be witty and clever. And I don't want us to be, you know, pompous. So what we then did is we sent this list of rules to Nigella Lawson, Prue Leith, Ruth Reichel, François Simon, who is the Le Figaro critic who inspired the character of Antoine Egan in Ratatouille. You know, that like terrifying critic. Brooklyn Beckham, we sent the rules to, and they all gave us their feedback on which rules they agreed with and which they didn't. So, yeah, pick up the paper this weekend to discover which rule Ruth Reichel, who's sort of the doyenne of American criticism, described as the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I just love the fact that our critics have got the class and confidence to do that. I think if I worked with any other group of people, emailing them and saying, hey, you know, to welcome this new lineup to the paper, what I want to do is have a load of people who you really admire sort of tear your views to shreds. I feel like it might not have gone down well. But that's the thing it's the same thing about what makes someone cool, right? It's like you've got to sort of be confident in your own skin and not care. And that's what makes them all so good, that they just find it very funny and interesting to court that feedback.
You have new people, but you also have some of the old columnist, if I may say. Ting Hayward's still there.
Absolutely,
with a kind of a different kind of column.
Yeah.
And Jancis Robinson, which I love it as well.
Yeah, Jancis has been writing for the FT since 1989, which is the year before I was born, which is extraordinary. And
I loved her wine special. There was a special edition of a wine.
There was a special issue, yeah.
Very helpful, I have to say.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I did with her, and I think another example of how I sort of want to make the magazines feel they're really useful, these special issues. I mean, she is the world's leading authority on wine. There is no like hyperbole there. That is who she is. It's absolutely extraordinary that she writes for our magazine. What we are doing in terms of her column and how it will like now be presented in the magazine, nothing is changing. People are obsessed with it, except for the fact that we are now adding every week a sort of beginner-friendly annotation, which is going to be called First Sip, where you, or to be honest, like even me as her editor, if you're sort of looking for an entry point into the column, you know, she's got one in a couple of weeks' time, which mentions Bordeaux first growth quite a lot, you know, in the context of the column. So the explainer on that is, what does a first growth mean? Sort of like explaining that distinction. So what I'm hoping is that particularly when you read that in print as a print experience, you know, if you don't know much about wine, you look at Jancis's column and you think like, I wish I could access this. Like, I want to be the sort of person who reads Jancis's column, who knows about wine, but I need some help getting started. That you can use the, you know, annotation box as sort of a way of then returning to the column and being like, okay, this makes more sense to me now. And week on week, that knowledge will build, which is, again, I think that's a good example of how I want the food and drink content in the magazine to both work for our established audience, like the idea of, you know, making Jancis write a column every week about the best fizzy rosés, just like send shivers down my spine. But I also want us to be able to bring in new readers. So I think, you know, doing it this way, which in no way compromises her expertise or the sort of depth of her columns, makes sense to me as a way of balancing the FT Weekend's quite unique audience with those two camps of people.
And the magazine in general, the FT Weekend magazine, I can see is a work of love. How big is the team that only dedicates itself to the magazine, including yourself, of course?
In terms of editors, we are 5 editors. Mm-hmm. And then there's a team of 4 sub-editors, 2 designers, 2 photo editors.
Because the photography is amazing as well. I do have to add that.
Yeah, both our photo editors are sort of deeply embedded in the photography community. I'm saying that like in scare quotes because it's a bit of an icky word, community, but you know, they're very much like part of that world. And so they're able to we just really punch above our weight in terms of the people we're able to bring in. I mean, we had like Cindy Sherman do a sort of magazine special, which is just incredible when you think about, you know, how world famous she is.
And finally, Harriet, I just want to talk because, you know, doing the stack, I'm coming across a lot of beautiful food magazines and people they just want to read about food and drink. Gale's, the famous bakery chain, they launched their own food publication. It's a very exciting place to be, right, in this world of food and drink in print. I
think so. And I think the independent publications are sort of one step ahead of the mainstream newspapers, because one thing I sort of noticed when I was first researching this role and sort of picking up the various like Sunday supplements is that in newspaper magazines, I'd say food and drink often feels like one of the most traditional sections of the newspaper, you know.
A recipe and,
exactly.
You know, very, yeah.
Yeah, and very sort of, you know, sometimes with the recipes I have this feeling often of like, is anyone actually cooking these recipes, or are these recipes just sort of being designed because they work for magazines? You know, like I feel like quite suspicious sometimes of like how practical it is and how much it's just, you know, this food looks nice on the page and this is how magazines have done food and drink coverage in newspapers for 20 years. It feels like it hasn't changed much in quite a long time, a lot of coverage. But yeah, if you look at what independent publications are doing, it's really incredible. I mean, Vittles, which is probably the most exciting sort of new media food publication, has announced just like a couple of days before this that they're going to be making their first print magazine, which I've already pre-ordered and like I'm very
I'll invite them for the stack.
Yeah, definitely. And that's just an example of, you know, someone who's doing so well with an online publication is like interested in exploring the possibility of food in print. So that feels like a very promising sign.
Thank you very much, Harriet Fitch Little there, food and drink editor of the FT Weekend magazine. You can buy a copy of the FT Weekend today to take a look at this new revamped food and drink coverage. Moving along to another great media organization announcing big changes. Forbes has opened a private members club in Madrid, Forbes House Madrid. The title is published in Spain in partnership with Spainmedia, founded by Andrés Rodríguez, also president of Forbes House Madrid. To tell us more about the members club and a bit more about Spainmedia and its successful titles, which include also the great food title Tapas, here is Andrés Rodríguez with more.
Talking about Spainmedia, the company is more alive than ever, alive and kicking. We are thinking in a couple of years we will have our 20th anniversary. And on 2025, we are living an incredible year because we have some headlines. First of all, 10 years of Tapas. Tapas, the magazine that I create for try to explain how we are from the point of view of food and drinks, and because we feel that how we drink, how we cook, how we eat, how we share with other people and other countries and other cultures, this kind of living will be a trend. We have this idea 10 years ago, and Tapas is now a strong teenager with a lot of energy, very fresh. The present for the 10 years birthday for Tapas is the born of a foodie international festival that we will celebrate the first edition in Madrid. The name of the festival will be the motto of the magazine. It's called Ñam Ñam Festival. Ñam Ñam is in Spanish is Yummy Yummy, and Yummy Yummy Festival, that in Spanish is Ñam Ñam Festival, and will be a festival international of experience gastronomy. That will be in the last day of summer in September.
And Andrés, if I may say, Tapas is a fantastic magazine. It was a bit of a trendsetter as well, right? Its concept of food and lifestyle, it really, I think, influenced other magazines.
Yeah, I think so. I think when I published the first issue of Tapas, all the food magazines that will be published in the world was about recipes. They teach you how to cook. That's an incredible point of view. But the point of view of Tapas is not just how you need to learn for cooking. It's talk about, I want to dinner with you. I want to lunch with you. I want to have a drink with you. Where I'm going with you if you came to Madrid. Where are going the readers of Monocle if they came to Barcelona or Ibiza for drink? We are going to do a business lunch, or we are going to do, I don't know, fashion dinner, or we are going to make, breakfast with family on Sunday. That's our point of view. We believe that when you choose a restaurant, you choose the clothes you are using to dress for this place. You choose the friends that you want to show them the restaurant, or you choose if you use your tie, or I don't know, or sneakers for the place. That's all is Tapas point of view about. We don't put chefs on the cover. We put fashion people on the cover. We have on the cover Giorgio Armani with a risotto. We have on the cover Tom Ford. We have influencers. We have, architects. Because everyone, dinner, breakfast, lunch, invite, cook or not cook, everyone enjoy life through the meal. And that's Tapas point of view. And the festival, the Ñam Ñam Festival in Madrid, will be the experience of this point of view this year.
And I think we must talk now about this very exciting news about Forbes launching in Madrid its first private members club. And I think that's so exciting that the first one is going to be in Madrid because, Forbes is one of your titles and it has such a strong presence in the Spanish newsstand. Every time I go to Spain, and it's really incredible local content as well. So tell us, this is very exciting. When is it going to open? I wonder, what can you tell us a bit about it?
Okay, the club opened 2 months ago. We are in our first quarter of the year. The idea began because I was thinking about how I make the company bigger, how I make Spainmedia more influence, how I make more funny the company for my clients, my readers, my brands who trust in the company. Everybody hear about the energy of Madrid last 3 years. We are I think the capital most exciting in Europe now, definitely. And I thought that was a good opportunity to make a business club, just private, just for membership. But from the point of view that the business is modern, and you can do business from a point of view international, globally, modern, fresh, with a style. Business without the style is so bored. It's boring. It's not interesting for me. I thought, okay, we have the brand. I've been publishing an editor-in-chief Forbes during 10 years, 11 years this year, and in 2025. And the magazine is fresh. We have influencers in the cover. We have new entrepreneurs on the cover. Of course, we do the rich list, but they are not on the cover. We refresh the magazine. We change the typography. We have a beautiful paper. It could be that we are printing one of the most exciting magazines in Spain and in Spanish. I talked with the president of Forbes and I said, okay, why we don't make a club? Why we don't make a physically space to enjoy life, make a business? Enjoy life, make a business is a great idea. We build an incredible place, 2,000 meters in one building, exclusive just for Forbes. We think about a lot if we name it club or we name it house. And finally, we took the decision to give to the project Forbes House because we feel inside a house. Of course, it's a club, but inside a house, because a house is bigger than a club. It's more home. It's more warm. We opened 2 months ago. We have now more than 500 members in just a couple of months. And the most important thing is not not the number of the 500. Most important thing is that we have the most interesting leaders in different professions and jobs in Spain and international. And we are open an incredible bridge for the Latin American countries because they are choosing Madrid, like the new Miami. We have living in Madrid with Mexican businessmen, Mexican entrepreneurs, Venezuelan entrepreneurs. They feel that Spain and Madrid are the real window for our international Spanish-speaking community. And Forbes House has a mission, incredible mission, to connect these communities that Madrid is attracting now.
And having a physical space, I mean, this is the best connection with the reader as well, right? Of a title like Forbes. I think nothing beats that, right?
Yeah, nothing beats. It's my first opportunity to create a restaurant inside the house. I never created a restaurant during all my years like a publisher or businessman. We have an incredible restaurant. We hired the best chef in Madrid, selected best chef in Madrid in 2024. The physical experience of the brand is amazing because I publish magazine and I believe in magazines. I'm in love with the magazines, and my company is a company about magazine and media. But not everyone has time to buy a magazine. We have problems with the distribution in every world. The digital experience is not the same experience like the physical experience for the magazine. With a physical club like Forbes House, you have the opportunity to be contagious with the brand, to be proud, to be close to Forbes or close to Spainmedia in a physical place. The members think, what I dress today because I'm going to Forbes House for a dinner. What I dress today, who are my friends I want to invite to Forbes House because I'm one of the founders that I opened the first Forbes members club in the world. My work, like a president of Forbes House and president of the company, is try to connect different people, try to connect entrepreneurs with artists, with galleries, with winemakers, with architects, with lawyers, men, women, politicians. We are opening the door for the the new politicians and European politicians to have a window to discuss the future of our society, of our country. And that's incredible opportunity for a publisher, because the work of a publisher like me is connect people and try to get for everyone the most important thing that they can offer to the community. That's my job, and we are on the plane now.
And it's also a confidence. You mentioned about Madrid being a very exciting city in Europe at the moment. It's confidence as Madrid is very much a big media city in Europe, confident. And I think the opening of the very first Forbes House, I think that kind of proves that in a way.
Yeah, we have the illusion and the vision to open the club. We don't have any doubt about the success of the club, because it's a club is very similar like a magazine. You need to every day to renovate your point of view. You need to attract new talent for the magazine. You need to attract new talent for the house members. You need to make that things happen in the magazine. You need to make that things happen in the club. It's quite similar at the job to be the editor-in-chief of a magazine. But it's true that the energy of Madrid now, the energy, the money, the internationalism of Madrid, when new communities come in, it's a great help. It's a great help for them to make this project a global project, because we are thinking to open new houses around the world. We are discussing how to upscale this idea and this model, and enjoy, because every reader knows when the people who make the magazine enjoy or not. The magazines is one of the vehicles, one of the language where the reader feels if the people who make the magazine are enjoying or not. In this house, in Forbes House, it's the same. If the team enjoy, if the team who make the house, the Forbes House, the club, are happy, their eyes are shining, the people want to be in. I want to be involved with this cool, positive energy. That's a house, and it's quite similar than a magazine.
Gracias, Andrés. And for more information on Spainmedia, go to spainmedia.es. And that's it for this week's show. My thanks to our editor, Jack Dewars. Any comments or queries, feel free to write to me, Fernando, at fp@monocle.com. And remember, we're back next Saturday at 10 a.m. London time. Meanwhile, you can listen to The Stack again at monocle.com and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You've been listening to The Stack. I'm Fernando Augusto Pacheco. It's goodbye from me.